My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I'm pleased to have a special guest, newly elected to the Connecticut chapter for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's the head coach of the wrestling program at Platt, Bryan Mccarty. Coach Mccarty, it's a pleasure to be able to have you on.
How are you doing this evening? It's definitely a pleasure to be here.
COVID's really kind of done a lot to, many people, not just the world, the country, Connecticut itself. But this is a time to be able to celebrate, which not many people get elected to the Hall of Fame, coaches or players. And now you can say you are a Hall of Famer. And we're going to go full circle with this. And before we even start off with that, I just want to say, has it hit you yet?
It just started hitting me. It's again very, very, very humbling. I'm so appreciative to the individuals involved in this award. Um, it's beginning to hit me, and this is very exciting times. It's great for our program.
Coach, can I just take me into the background as far as the beginning of the McCarty story?
So if I take you back to when I started wrestling in 1987, it was my sophomore year of high school. I joined a pretty good team in terms of the wrestlers on the team. 2 years later, we take second at the Class S's. I was not one of the top tier wrestlers, but we did it with only 8 guys on the team. These were some elite athletes. The 5 guys that made the finalists and went on to great, great things. Those are the guys that I really learned from going into my senior year. And then I went into coaching immediately after high school. So I was 17 years old. They waited eight days to sign me as the assistant. And I spent the year basically working out with an All-American here, the first Connecticut All-American for the National High School Coaches Association, Jason Carino. That was so exciting. And he taught me so much technique that year. And then the following year, when I was 18, I took over the program. So I was perceivably the youngest head coach in America at the time. So that was the first years of getting wet and learning the technique and just the style of wrestling. So that was definitely a bumpy road, a tough road, but it was exciting at the same point in time, and it really hooked me.
Do you think starting out as far as going to when you were age 17, do you think kind of jumping into it rather at such a young age in some ways benefited you because then you were awarded kind of because with anything, there's going to be ups and downs as a coach. But being
Mhm.
so young and the fact that they were giving you that opportunity spoke highly of not just your intellect and your, aptitude as far as on the wrestling side, but just the fact that you could still connect with the athletes because you were still in the teenage stages of your young career.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to the administration here at Platt and the athletic director for the vision they had. I certainly didn't see it at that age. I was there. I was there to have fun, doing something I really enjoyed to do. I was in college, and it was a place to go, a positive place to go. I was around people that were really infectious with enthusiasm and things like that about the sport, and it really hooked me. But at that point, it took me to another level. As I matured in the sport and matured as a person, it became an advantage to have that background so early, as a coach. So being the youngest coach around, I remember my first year as a head coach. I popped onto the bus one time, and the team's on the bus, and the bus driver says, "Where's your coach?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." And the bus driver was simply, "I'm not leaving until your coach is on this bus." So that was a great story from way back when. And I'm like, "No, I swear to God, I'm the coach." So we kind of dealt with that sometimes. And some of the kids were my age or just slightly younger. And I grew up with them through the program. Eventually, those kids became lifelong friends as adults. And, I still contact with a lot of those guys to this day. And that's just a wonderful attribute to that, too.
Taking over the program, I mean, I struggle making decisions as far as what I want to have for breakfast in the morning. So as a young, young coach as you were 18 when you took over the program. I mean, just take me into that because I feel like in some ways you probably because you seem like a very calm, cool, collected guy. I mean, I'm sure when you're coaching, completely different. But I feel like when you were offered the job and you took it, I feel like you took it with stride and you didn't even think twice. You weren't nervous. You were like, all right, well, I love what I'm doing. This is awesome. So I'm just gonna this is like, riding a bicycle.
That's exactly it. It was a lot of fun for me at the time. Just jumping into there and starting to make decisions. I wanted to make it fun for the kids, but I think mostly because I was an ancillary player as an athlete on the wrestling team. It wasn't my number one sport at the time coming out of high school. I understood what a lot of the kids went through as they started their wrestling careers. I only had 3 years of high school wrestling under my belt before I was a coach. And then the head coach was a total of 4 years wrestling. So, I knew what these kids were going through as they tried to earn their way through the sport. And again, those were exciting times. We were not a good team when I first started. We didn't win very many matches. We were probably the worst team in the Class M's. I think the only team we beat my first year was a team that didn't show up in the Class M's. But, you know, fast forward 2 years later, those same kids that were very green, we broke the school record in 94. We broke the school record in 95 again, and we were on the state map getting the state rankings. So those kids really are the ones that set the program.
That's awesome. I mean, hey, I think that's one of the things, coach, when you think about it, the maturation period, being able to go through as far as when you first start and then the baby steps, you think about in professional sports where the rebuilding process, and I'm intrigued by that because each program, each coach has a different view, but in some ways the end result is the same, which is success amongst the program, but also helping the young men. Coach, for you specifically, what year? I know you mentioned in 94 or 95. When did you feel like that, okay, you know what, things are turning the corner? Was it during that struggling first year or was it during workouts in the off season? Tell me about it.
Well, those guys did feed into the workouts in the off season, and we met a lot of really interesting people. One of the most interesting people we met was Zeke Jones, who was an Olympian and now a college coach, very successful college coach. One of the traits of that 94, 95 team was they always did one for Zeke because that's what Zeke told them to do. So you'd be in practice and we'd pump out push-ups and they'd be yelling, we're going to do one for Zeke right now. Extra laps, one for Zeke, extra drilling, one for Zeke. So it became very infectious. I felt like we turned a corner athletically during that 94, 95 season. But then those were kids that had a lot of desire. I didn't feel that we were getting a lot of respect statewide because I was still young and we were a program that wasn't overall successful through the 20 to 30 years before that. But at the same point, people were challenging us and we were competing with them. So that was definitely a highlight of ours.
At the end of the day, it's kind of like, you got to earn the respect. And even when you earn it, there's still people that will say, oh, well, they're this, they're small, they're whatever. But I think for you guys to be able to continue on chugging forward and proving people wrong, I think just kind of shows what you are as a coach.
Yeah, let me turn the lights back on here. Turned off. There we go.
There you go, coach. The lights are
Yeah.
back on.
Yeah, I give so much credit to the assistants I've had through the years. I've had some amazing, amazing assistants starting back early on. Carl Baumgart was my first assistant. He became a amazing individual. He lives out in Arizona now. He's a world-class velodrome rider, but the intensity that he brought in and just the enthusiasm for the sport, that was infectious to the kids. And then, you bump into like Doug Stevenson, who became a two-time assistant coach of the year for Adam Killingworth. I've got Wes Johnson right now, currently, who's the assistant coach for me, but he was an All-American for me and he's also a travel coach. Joe Winoski has bumped over to Maloney as the head coach, and Joe DeBacco is now a superintendent at Ansonia Public Schools. So I've had some tremendous assistants through the years. Rick Walsh was an assistant for me as well, who was the person that started the Xavier program. Um, just just infectious people, a lot of enthusiasm. They love the kids, and to this day, we still contact each other. To this day, they'll reach out to the kids individually. It's just it's amazing to see the culture that has grown, and I'm very proud of that.
And speaking of the culture, coach, thinking about kind of when you first started at 17 and now with it being 2021, obviously things have changed. I mean, social media, iPhones, what's gone on in the world in the last year plus, you know, what were some of the, I don't want to say hardest, but for you as a coach, what did you find challenging as far as kind of making the adjustments as a coach? Because you kind of have to go with the times. You have to stay up to date. Otherwise, you'll be left behind.
So initially, it was I was being challenged by other coaches in terms of, what are you doing? And I kept saying, I'm trying to make the program fun for the kids because what I wanted to do, my vision was to get a bigger team. We were always a small team. Like I talked about that 89 team, there was 8 kids. Um, I wanted a lot of kids to be able to be in the wrestling room. I wanted to be able to, impact those kids for their future. So that was the first thing. That was a challenge to try to, people would go into your wrestling room and you're playing dodgeball. Well, guess what? The kids love dodgeball. They come back the next day and we put in our 2 hours of practice, intense practice, and they keep coming back. And that was my goal. So some people that challenge me in that aspect probably turn around and go, oh, high school sports should be fun, and it brings the kids back. So I've had teams as high as 40 kids or more. So those are the teams that really you get into the depth, and you can do some real damage in the state with those teams.
So the fun aspect was probably the biggest thing as far as if you can get it, the fun should be the easiest part. But as a coach, especially someone who wants to win as many matches, games, no matter the sport, sometimes fun is forgotten. And I think as a coach to realize that at the end of the day, it's, I remember a quote from Moneyball. There was a scout who was playing, an actor was playing a scout, pardon me. And he said, it doesn't matter if we're 15 or we're 40. At the end of the day, baseball is a child's game and it's about having fun. And I
Yep.
think for you, coach, to be able to kind of see that full circle, especially at such a young age at that time, that's really impressive.
So even to this day, I mean, our fun has kind of changed a little bit. We will warm up with the spike ball, so the kids love that. But it also provides a lot of agility and things like that for the kids. We'll definitely put our work in. The kids know that the work is coming, but there's rewards that are different than, just wrestling or just running or something like that. We make it unique and fun in that aspect. And I think the kids really do appreciate that. They remember some of those events and things, and you know, keep sports fun for the kids. Make sure they're working hard, but keep it fun.
As you move through as far as your coaching career, did it ever, and just in talking with you, I feel like the Hall of Fame even topic probably never came through your head. But was there ever discussions amongst friends, former players, current players, coaches, family, whoever, that ever mentioned, hey, McCarty, Hall of Fame, what do you think? Anything like that?
You know, it's funny because I just got off from a buddy that I went to school with here, and he always told me, "You're going to be a Hall of Famer. You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind." But I said, maybe once in a while, maybe the Platt High School Hall of Fame. That would be great. I would be so excited. Um, to get that letter in the mail in the middle of December was like, it was shocking. But definitely, appreciative. I'm very, very humbled. I can't say it enough. But people do see things in me that maybe I don't recognize. I got a phone call from Ken DeStefanis the other day, who was a Central Connecticut Division I wrestling coach, and he's in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, who I have the utmost respect for, and admire. And when he was talking to me, he said, I saw this coming. And I said, Coach, I remember going to your clinics back in 90, 91, 92. Um, I how could you see it? He just said, I love your coaching style. I love the way you speak to the kids, work with the kids, and I love your passion. So that to me kind of hit home. You have a Hall of Famer talking to you directly and giving his reasons. So that was a really cool moment for me in these past few days. Um, I'm gonna try to remember all this, but it's going fast, and there's just so many people reaching out to me. It's very exciting.
But
It's
no,
exciting.
it's well deserved, coach, because you think about it, not to say that you wouldn't, people wouldn't reach out to you even if you didn't get into the Hall of Fame. But the fact that there are so many people from players, and you just mentioned, a Hall of Famer who is amongst one of the best ever. I mean, just continuous amount of people pouring in saying congrats or sending texts or phone calls, etc. I mean, I kind of feel like in some ways it just goes to it goes back to what you said where you didn't even think that you were anything special, but people who saw you and coached against you and was a player and so on and so forth, they saw something that maybe you didn't, and that just kind of goes to show how special your coaching ability and who you are as a person are.
Yeah, I'd like to think that I could recognize it all, but the truth is that I'm there for the kids, and I get so much more excited when the kids get awards. Back in 2002, I had the Dave Schultz Award winner for the state, Louis Murillo Jr. Just amazing athlete. He won the state open, and he's enshrined in the Hall of Fame. I'm more excited to be near him, you know, near his plaque. So that's really where I'm at. Um, I love seeing the kids succeed.
When you got the letter in December, did you have any inkling that even the Hall of Fame was an option? I mean, I feel like, I mean, again, I keep going back to professional sports, but if there's a chance for them to be in the Hall of Fame, well, you put a ballot, check yay or nay. So then it's kind of like, well, there's a chance, unless you're Derek Jeter, where, so on and so forth.
Automatic.
Yeah, automatic, exactly. But for you, did you have any idea like that there was a chance at all?
I it didn't even cross my mind. Even the next day, I was just went about my business, and no one really knew about this till my AD asked me. We came back from break, and my AD, did you get a letter? He said. I said, well, yeah, I got a letter. Can I see it? So that's when I shared it, and he was really excited for me. He's obviously a catalyst behind this, the support for our program and support for me. He was my former baseball coach back in the 80s to 90s, and he's been phenomenal to the program as well. So I feel like he had a strong hand in this, and I'm really appreciative to him for that.
You know, the Platt the Platt programs. I mean, I've had Coach Bruin on, I've had his assistant on as well on the football side, and they've been nothing but respectful. And they love obviously the sport that they coach, but they love the kids. And I feel like you alluded to as well about how you care more about if the kids get awards than as far as you with the Hall of Fame. And I feel like that just goes to show the Platt pride, that whatever you want to call it, Panther pride, whatever. It embodies what is a one as far as being able to be there for the kids and help them going forward.
Yeah, I think as coaches, we do share that vision. We want to see our athletes succeed, both in the classroom and on the mat, or in that case, on the gridiron. Um, and I'm there to support the kids in all avenues. I'm the voice of the Panthers, so I go announce on Friday nights and get to watch Coach Bruin and Coach Frederick do their thing. They're amazing to watch. They're exciting to watch. So I love watching those guys. But yeah, I mean, we get involved in each other's lives, and we, talk about the kids, and we want what's right for the kids in this community. That's definitely the first pillar of probably all our vision here at Platt as coaches, and we have some amazing coaches. Um, Back when I first started, I met an individual out of West Hill, I believe, and he said, the best teachers at Platt High School are the coaches. They're on the fields, they're in the locker rooms, which was really, really humbling at the time. So that's a good thing for our sports programs.
Well, and when you look at what people are dealing with as far as with COVID and everything, and the whole thing with the CIAC, and you had
Mhm.
the whole thing with football, fall sports, winter sport. I mean, just everything. And I feel for the coaches, I feel for the players so much because I feel like, and I've talked to, and since I started this podcast in March, the connections I made, between coaches and players is you could
Yeah,
never replace that. But the coaches have told me that they've lost connection with some players. They've lost some of their guys. They don't know
yeah,
what they're doing. They feel like they don't know what their path is. And I feel like when you hear that about, Panther Pride, Families One, being there for the players, like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, I feel like that is so important, especially now with what we're dealing with COVID-19.
yeah. I think I lived it. Yeah, I'm a coach for the baseball team too. So losing the spring season and the mental health of those kids, their senior year. We had 10 seniors last year. Um, Really was risky at times. We had to reach out, and the head coach at the time, Tim Redican, did a wonderful job of connecting with the kids. So I applaud him for that. But still, they lost their season. We lost an opportunity to grow with those kids. And then you fast forward to now, where I'm the head coach of a season that's, really just keep being laid off. Yeah, I'm losing kids. I have a definite concern about where the program's going to be afterwards, where these kids are going to go. I'm watching their grades. I'm contacting their parents. I'm wondering what the heck's going on sometimes. So yeah, I definitely have concern about where this is going to lead, and the kids. I'm hoping that they fall on their feet. I'm hoping that we got an opportunity. I'm just begging for us to be able to work out with the kids in some sort of capacity so I can get some sort of team aspect going, um, just to get them back on track. A lot
I've
of
I've mentioned that, coach, many times to various coaches about how if there's not going to be a season, or even if there is to a certain degree, because of the lost developmental time, I feel like the CIAC, because if anything, if we learned anything in 2020, change is okay. I mean, I hate change, but even I've come around and said, okay, change is not so bad. And I feel like if the CIAC could just allow certified coaches, again, certified, allow them an opportunity to work with their players if the players want to. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, they can put the logistics and say this amount of time for this amount of days and this amount of months, whatever. That's out of my, my pay grade, pay whatever. But I feel like that would benefit the players and the coaches because like you said, then you can make sure that they're being okay psychologically.
Yeah, I think as coaches, our job would be in this case, obviously, to make it as safe as possible. We have the option to say, if there was a season, we could say there's no practice today. We're definitely dealing with some health issues around here. We should have that option. The kids should have the option to say, Coach, this isn't the season for me. I'm taking a route of uh, for my safety, for my parents' safety, for my grandparents' safety, whatever it is, and not opt in. But those, oh, here we go again. Those kids that definitely need the program more than the program needs them. We've been hearing that a lot lately. You know, those are the ones that want to be around people. They want to work out. They need to connect with something to keep them going for the school capacity. We want to be able to have some sort of avenue to do that, whether it's coaching through conditioning, coaching through, shadow wrestling at this point. Um, we want that opportunity. We're hoping for it, and we'll see where it goes. But I think that we can do things safe enough, and even if 10 kids show up, I've got two certified coaches, myself and my assistant. We split them up, and we'll figure something safe out. That being said, the health and safety for everyone is important, the physical health and safety, but we can't discount the mental health that's going on right now for these kids. It's trying times.
Coach McCarty, does it I don't know if anger is the right word, maybe very disgruntled that DPH and other groups involved as far as categorizing what's a low, middle, high risk, moderate risk, whatever. And then they put wrestling as far as a sport that cannot compete. I feel like, looking at the other sports, and I'm not trying to poo poo and say they shouldn't play, but I feel like coaches and in the football, football coaches are kind of on the same boat because they want answers. How is this high risk? Other sports are not. When, basketball, prime example, I've always said is like football without pads. And I know I've heard Dr. Giffer, I think her name is, she's mentioned about the air droplets, et cetera, all the scientific
Yeah.
stuff. But I feel like for a coach, you want answers and they're not giving them.
So yeah, well, what I really want is clarity. What's the reason? What's the reasoning that makes us specific reasoning that makes us a high risk sport? Heavy breathing, the no mask thing. What is it? And then maybe we can find some mitigating circumstances from there. Who knows? That communication is set forward. These are the reasons, 1, 2, 3, why it's a high risk. Maybe we can get into that lower risk category. Um, I wouldn't I wouldn't categorize myself as being disgruntled or overly upset. I believe in my heart that the DPH is doing what they think is right, but they're not seeing what we see in the trenches here, where teachers are and coaches are. They're doing what they think is right for the community, and I applaud them for that. But we also have to look out for our own little community too. So we've got to advocate for those kids too.
And like you said, you want to make sure that, you're concerned about the program going forward because, you know, it may not, as far as what COVID has done, and it's done a lot to the economy and businesses. And my heart goes out to all the business owners and such because they're doing as best as possible, going through all the guidelines and the protocols and still dealing with a lot of crap. But I feel like uh, the true, what COVID has done as far as to schools and to young men and women and adults and such, we won't know for 5 to maybe 10 years because we'll have to see the ramifications of that. And I hope the Platt wrestling program can kind of rebound and you can get the players back and get back that interest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the ones you feel for the most are obviously the seniors who lose the season, who lose that recruiting opportunity, who lose those connections with the kids, the memories. I look back to my senior year. If this happened during my senior year, I may never have been a coach. you know, that's a huge impact. Who knows what these kids are going to have to deal with later on. But in the end, we'll be there as coaches. We'll be there as a staff. This high school staff will be there for the kids if they ever need to reach out to us. So, I mean, that's the best we can do at this point.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I did end this podcast on a positive note. Felt like we got a little bit negative there, but a lot of good points we hit on though. Coach, is there anybody before we end this podcast? And thank you so much for being able to come on and take some time out. Is there anybody that you would like to thank, or you just want to, show gratitude for, as far as now being a part of the Hall of Fame and the Connecticut chapter for the National Wrestling?
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my parents, obviously. Wonderful people helped me, mature and grow, let me make mistakes, but also my wife. I met my wife the same year I started coaching. And we've been together. She's been through this through the 30 years with me. Um, we call her the winter widow because I'm away from the house so much. And we have 3 beautiful kids that she's, majorly raised, especially during the wrestling season. So she's as part of this as much as I am. But of course, there's so many people that have been involved in this award. and I call it a we award because it's really for the program, not just me.
Coach, a great way to end it right there. And, I think, thank you thank you so much for being able to come on, spend some time and just kind of go back in history a little bit about what kind of got you to the point now. And now you're a Hall of Famer. But coach, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime. I'm going to leave you with one more great statistic. Coach Frederick of the football team did wrestle for me back in the early '90s, and he owns a statistic of throwing the headgear the farthest after losing a match and getting pinned the quickest.
Oh, the pin the quickest. I don't know if that's a good one, but throwing stuff, I mean, hey, maybe that shows, hey, maybe football might be kind of in his future for coaching. That
He's a
aggression.
he's a fiery guy.
Hey,
We love Coach Frederick.
he's passionate. And, just to go back real quick, Bruin, Frederick, I don't think people realize, and maybe it's because there's so many football programs, but what Platt does as far as for the players, and I've talked to a couple of them and just having them on, they just love coaching so much.
There's definitely a lot of passion here, and we might not see it in wins and losses all the time, but we see it in our kids when they go and graduate college or get a amazing job, or they enter the military and they're become successful individuals and come back and give to the programs that they played for. So yeah, those are the real rewards.
That's great. Hey, we got to wrap things up here. Until next time, my name is Christopher Saunders. This is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, and I'm always looking for the top talent in Connecticut.